They call it Death Valley for a reason. I always thought the name was just for show, a grim tourist attraction for adrenaline junkies. But after what happened, I know better. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my curiosity nearly got me killed. It started as a spontaneous road trip. My boyfriend Jake and I had been cooped up in our tiny Los Angeles apartment for months, so when he suggested a weekend getaway to Death Valley, I jumped at the chance. The plan was simple: drive out, camp under the stars, and maybe take some photos of the sprawling desert. The drive started off normal enough. We joked about the heat and stopped to snap pictures of the endless stretches of cracked earth and rocky terrain. But as we ventured deeper into the valley, a strange unease settled over me. The air felt heavier, and the silence was oppressive. No birds, no insects, just the faint hum of our car's engine. By the time we reached the remote campsite, the sun was dipping below the horizon. The desert turned a dusky orange, the shadows growing long and sinister. Jake, ever the adventurer, wanted to hike a bit before we set up camp. I wasn't thrilled about wandering around in the dark, but he convinced me. That's when we found it. About a mile from where we parked, Jake spotted something half buried in the sand. At first, we thought it was just an old piece of debris, maybe a sign or a broken-down vehicle. But as we dug around it, we realized it was a car. A rusted, ancient-looking station wagon, its windows smashed and its roof caved in. The weird part, it didn't look like it had been there for years, despite the state of the vehicle. The tires were still intact, and there were fresh-looking footprints leading away from the driver's side door. Probably some unlucky tourist, Jake said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. We should have left then. I wanted to. But Jake's curiosity got the better of him, and before I could stop him, he was prying open the car door. The smell hit us first, a sickly sweet stench that made my stomach churn. Inside, we found a torn backpack, some scattered clothes, and a map with strange symbols scrawled across it in red ink. "Let's go," I whispered, pulling at his arm. "This feels wrong." Jake hesitated, but the unease in my voice must have convinced him. We started back toward the campsite, but the further we walked, the more I felt like we weren't alone. Shadows danced just beyond the edge of my flashlight's beam, and the wind carried faint whispers that didn't sound natural. When we reached the car, it was worse. Tires had been slashed, and deep gouges ran along the sides of the vehicle like claw marks. "Who would have done this?" Jake muttered, his bravado fading fast. "I don't know," I snapped, fumbling for my phone. No service, of course. We decided to spend the night in the car, figuring it was safer than pitching a tent in the open, but sleep was impossible. Every sound outside, the scrape of sand against metal, the low whistle of the wind, set my nerves on edge. Jake tried to reassure me, but even he couldn't hide his fear. Sometime after midnight I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping on the window. "Jake!" I hissed, shaking him awake. He groggily sat up, and we both froze as the tapping grew louder, more insistent. I shone my flashlight toward the window, but nothing was there. That's when the whispers started again. Only this time, they were clearer, more distinct, voices calling our names. "Jake! Sarah!" We both screamed, scrambling out of the car, forgetting any semblance of safety. The desert around us was pitch black, and the voices seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Run!" Jake shouted, grabbing my hand. We bolted into the darkness, our flashlights swinging wildly. The whispers grew louder, turning into guttural screams. And then I saw them, figures moving in the shadows, their shapes distorted and wrong. We ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like jelly. Finally, we stumbled upon an abandoned ranger station. The door was unlocked, and we slammed it shut behind us, barricading it with whatever we could find. The voices didn't stop. They circled the building, scratching at the walls, pounding on the windows. We huddled together in the corner, too terrified to speak. When dawn finally broke, the noises stopped. Cautiously, we stepped outside, only to find the desert eerily still. No footprints, no signs of the figures from the night before. We never found out what we encountered in Death Valley, but one thing's for sure: I'll never go back. Whatever lurks out there isn't human, and it doesn't want to be found.